Welcome to the Rescheck blog. Today on the Rescheck blog, we want to talk about the 9 most important Rescheck tips for beginners in 2023. If you go to www.rescheck.info, you can scroll down to the Rescheck blog, open up this article, or just sit back and let me read it to you right now. The 9 most important Rescheck tips for beginners in 2023. Today we want to focus on those who are new to Rescheck and Rescheck software like Rescheck Web and Rescheck Desktop. Many readers of the Rescheck blog run their own Rescheck services, use Rescheck software daily, and have an outstanding knowledge of everything related to Rescheck. This Rescheck blog post is strictly for beginners in the world of Rescheck, and we put together 9 great tips below to help them get their Rescheck created easily. Rescheck tip 1, use Rescheck Web. Rescheck Web and Rescheck Desktop are the 2 options for Rescheck software. Rescheck Web is based online and can only be reached with an internet connection. Rescheck Desktop is downloaded to your computer's hard drive and is stored there so you can access it anytime and anywhere. I used to preach all day about the benefits of Rescheck Desktop over Rescheck Web because I routinely created Rescheck forms while I was on the road or at a job site location on the edge of national parks with very iffy internet connections. Not to mention that where I live has very slow, outdated internet connections as well. Nothing has really changed with the reliability of internet connections and Rescheck Web only being available online. What has changed is that Rescheck Desktop is being phased out. Certain energy codes have not and will not be made available on Rescheck Desktop. These include ICC 2018, ICC 21, ICC 2024, and ICC 2027. Also, they're sunsetting the entire Rescheck Desktop at a later date that is not known. I say the number 1 beginner tip for using Rescheck in 2023 is to learn on Rescheck Web software. If you choose Rescheck Desktop software, you might find yourself learning a new software again in 2024 or sooner when someone comes to you with an ICC 2018 or ICC 2021 Rescheck report. Rescheck tip number 2. Use a paper set of plans. Screens are nice, but nothing beats the touch and smell of a freshly printed paper set of blueprints. You can make notes on blueprints and store them easily. Trust me on this one and spend the extra 10 to 15 on a set of paper plans. It'll make your entire Rescheck calculation so much easier. Rescheck tip 3. Give yourself plenty of time. The beginner who is creating their first Rescheck will typically take between 10 and 12 hours to generate their first Rescheck. This is perfectly okay. Take the time to peck through the Rescheck software and figure out each one of the calculations. The first one may take 10 to 12 hours, but subsequent Reschecks will take far less time. If you use Rescheck Info as a Rescheck service to create your Rescheck for you, the lead time to receive your Rescheck is 4 to 6 hours. Rescheck tip number 4. Use the correct computer. Both Rescheck Web and Rescheck Desktop do not require huge amounts of computing power. That being said, I do not recommend smartphones, tablets, or a computer that's over 10 years old for the calculations. Accessing Rescheck Web or Rescheck Desktop takes place through a government website called energycodes.gov, so using an older browser or computer may run into security issues. Your computer does not need to be top of the line, but make sure it's tuned up with applicable updates and security upgrades and in good working order to avoid losing your Rescheck project in the middle of the calculation. Rescheck tip 5. Avoid Rescheck services that price projects on a price per square foot basis. This is a recipe to be overcharged and makes changes painful and a financial burden. The bait and switch happens when they advertise a low price for a Rescheck, and then you see that a normal size 3,000 square foot house costs 4 times more than the advertised price. At Rescheck Info, we charge only $79 for any size plan, so you don't need a degree in advanced mathematics to use our Rescheck service that creates a Rescheck for you from scratch. Rescheck tip 6. Prepare for modifications. Building departments and building inspectors love to put their personal touch on Reschecks. This means changes. Be prepared to make alterations to your Rescheck after the initial submission. Sometimes local regulations have special requirements that you will not be aware of until after your initial Rescheck submission. Be ready to fire Rescheck Web. Be ready to fire up Rescheck Web multiple times and make modifications the powers that be might request. If you choose to use Rescheck info to create your Rescheck, we offer free modifications. Rescheck tip 7. Understand window and door glazing requirements. Certain states and energy codes have maximum U values in SHCC that you can have in your glazed windows and doors. Anything over these U values in SHCCs in your project will automatically fail. Before you put any money down on a window and door package, or start your Rescheck, you should have some idea of what your local requirements are. Rescheck tip 8. The slab on a Rescheck used to be an area that offered trade-offs. You could add more insulation to your ceiling, walls, windows, or doors to compensate for less insulation in your slab. This is no longer the case. Slab insulation, where it's required now, is mandatory, and this means that if your project requires an R10 in the slab at 4 feet deep, then nothing else will pass. If you try to install an R9 into the Rescheck software, the project will not pass. Have a good idea of slab insulation requirements for your climate zone is a great idea. Rescheck tip 9. Rescheck for additions vary from those Reschecks used in new construction. A Rescheck for an addition is different in Rescheck software in multiple ways. The initial item that you will check off is on the cover page of Rescheck Web or Rescheck desktop software. You will toggle the option that turns your Rescheck into an addition. After that, the items that you include in your calculation are only those items that are added to the structure. In many cases, the existing structure, as long as the insulation envelope is not disturbed, can be left off the calculation. Knowing which items to include in your Rescheck addition and which items to leave off can be helpful for any beginner using Rescheck software for the first time. At Rescheck.info, we create Rescheck examples, Rescheck tutorials, and Rescheck tips for do-it-yourself Rescheck users. We also offer a low-cost Rescheck service. We charge $79 to complete the Rescheck in 4 to 6 hours, then offer free modifications for the life of the project. If you enjoyed these Rescheck tips and need a Rescheck created for you, simply email PDF plans, job site address, and square footage to service@rescheck.info, and we will get you taken care of quickly. Thanks for listening to the Rescheck Expert blog. If you're ready to get started, scroll up to the upper right of rescheck.info. Click that Buy Now button. That'll take you to the Rescheck store. Put the Rescheck in your cart. Check that Rescheck out, and you are ready to go. Thanks again for listening to the Rescheck Expert blog.